I'm really thankful that I had a family that loved me enough, and I had a father in heaven that loved me enough to stop and keep pulling me from the pits of hell. He left the 99 to come and get me a million times. Um, I didn't let that scare me, knowing that I was facing serious charges. I then started cooking meth myself. Um, I was in a vehicle in the woods with a good friend of mine. I'm not going to call names, but he got scared, so we got in the vehicle and we were leaving, shaking a jug, crystal meth. As we were leaving, it ignited. He hands me the bottle. The door doesn't open, and the windows won't roll down. I don't know why, it just did. So I'm sitting in here with a time bomb that I just have to get out of my face. I push it all the way to the front of the vehicle, to the dash, and I just pray to God, just help me, It blew up in my hand, burnt my hand, all down my legs. The seat was on fire, as much of the seat. I'm sitting in a seat. I had been with this person. He was not only my friend, but we were in a relationship. He opened the door and panicked. I've never seen someone just stop in fear and never not move at all. He froze. As I'm sitting there, I know I have to get out of this vehicle. I'm going to die. I'm holding the steering wheel with this hand, and I'm pulling myself, trying to get with this one to get it in the seatbelt to get me out. My hand is just charred. I have to stick it down in the seat to get myself out, and as I crawl out of this vehicle, the skin just falls off of me. At this point, you still would think that right there would be enough to stop, but I still wanted to get high. I was mad because I got burnt. I was mad because I lost my dope, and I was angry because the vehicle's burned up, and I don't know how we're going to explain this. So as I'm sitting there, shock started coming in. I was on bond, $150,000 bond with Coast County, so I'm not going to the hospital. He drops me out at the end of the driveway at my dad's, and I don't know how I got from the road to the house because I was completely burnt up. My arms, my neck, I got part of my face, my legs, my foot. I remember my dad coming outside and just being mortified. I had a blanket over me. You could just see this part, but it was horrific. And I said, if you call the police or you call the ambulance, I'm going to kill myself. I don't want to go to jail. So in my mind, at this point, I knew I didn't want to go to prison, but I also knew I didn't want to get clean either. I just needed help to get out of this place that I was in so I could get back out and do what I was doing. So I used and manipulated my dad. It was the most horrific thing I've ever been through in my life. I had to be scrubbed from head to toe. It took 4 or 5 men to hold me in a recliner. I think I stayed a couple of days, not long. I couldn't go out in the day because I was so badly burnt and bandaged up. I didn't want anyone to see me because I didn't want anyone to tell the police department or my bondsman that I got burnt. There's days there that I didn't think I would make it because of shock. I remember my dad praying for me. Is the most thing I remember is he just cried and prayed. It saddened the people that I loved very much to put them through that, but I still didn't care. I was glad I had him, but then I knew that I could put him over here to the side and that he would be back if I did something else. So that tough love, he would kind of enforce it, and then he would let up because I would threaten him. I end up getting another charge out on this bond, and this caused me to set my course to the love lady. I did not want to be there. I was angry. I was mad. When I went in the door, you could feel God, and I did not want to be around God because I was planning on leaving this place. I was not staying there. I just needed to get out of jail. This was my option and the only option for the bondsman to get me out. So I'm there, and I faked it till I made it. I made it through faking it as a love lady. I cheated myself, but I made it out. At that point, it was only a 6-month program. the day that I left the Love Lady, I graduated with a fake certificate because it was trash. I ended up getting right back high, right back cooking dope. I ended up getting in another bad situation. And once again, my dad bailed me out. So you would think that facing all these charges that I'm going to stop, that I know that I'm going to jail, because all at one time I have multiple charges in 2 counties. I have a rolling meth lab, and I have manufacturing with intent to sell. So I was all the whole time trying to manipulate my way to get out of this. How am I going to get to the next step to get what I want, and who am I going to use to get it? I can say that I used to say if I had my children back, and if my aunt hadn't taken them the way she did, and if things had been different, that I may have done something different. But that's not true. I had to come to the realization that I love meth more than I love myself. And I loved it more than my children, and I loved it more than my life. I eventually didn't have a choice but to get clean because I ended up in prison. I got in drug court, and which was a joke. I knew I wasn't going to make it. I never stayed high. I never stayed clean the entire time I was high. My sister was giving me urine. I finally got caught up, and I went to prison. Being from a small town in Magufka, I went from being raised Pentecostal. We didn't cut our hair. We wore dresses. We was in church every day. I had the background and the raising that you would think that would be there. What it was, it just wasn't there at that time. I get to prison, and it's horrific. I think, Lord, I'm not going to make it through this. It was the worst thing that ever happened to me. So you would think, having to deal with that and serve a year, that I would change, but I did not. The entire time I was in prison, I was contemplating a way and how was I going to get out and manipulate when I got home. So I did this year in prison, which changed me dramatically. Prison is not the answer, because you're not separated drug addicts and petty crimes from murderers. My bunkie killed her children and fed them to her husband. You don't have a choice to who you sleep with, and you have to adapt to the surroundings that you're put in. So I get out worse than I already was. As I get out, I'm still facing a charge in Talladega County, so I have to wait on them to pick me up and bond me out. So not knowing what's going to go on with that, the minute I hit the street, I didn't make it to my dad's 5 minutes. Here I am, and then called the dope man to come get me again, and I'm gone. I don't think I've ever set out a sentence and finished it that I didn't have a fresh one to back it up when I got done. I would EOS a sentence, and then I would be waiting to get charged on another. And this has been for 20 years. At the point where this last charges that I got were pretty horrific. I was out on bond for distribution with the intent to sell and a meth lab. So as I'm out, they let me, the judge, I come to court and I fall over on the DA because I'm so high. I dropped a person from the time I bonded out to the time I got sentenced. No one ever said, maybe something's wrong and we may ought to check this out. So as I'm getting sentenced, I fall over on the DA because I'm so high. So I ended up in jail again for 28 days. At this point, I think I stayed high the entire time because I had friends in there that had brought dope in. I get out and I get sentenced, and I got probation, which shouldn't have got. God intervened and I got probation. 3 weeks later, my new charges, I got distribution with intent to sell, hindering a government operation, tampering with physical evidence, assault to a police officer, 2 counts of possession, and 4 counts promote prison contraband from just being in a vehicle where I shouldn't have been. I'm currently waiting to be sentenced on those charges, but as God intervened, I was on a reverse split. If anyone knows what a reverse split is, it means I do this time on probation because I made this deal. And if I mess up at any point, I automatically go to prison. There's no leeway at all. So here I am sitting with 9 new charges. But before that, I had started shooting dope, and in 6 months, I had completely lost my dad. My family had completely they had washed their hands of me. So I had my oldest daughter. That was my ride or die. At that point, that's what you call them. They ride with you through everything. And you think you're not doing them any harm. She never did dope with me. She just always come and bailed me out, and always come and got me because she didn't want me to be at the bottom. I had tried to kill myself before I had got arrested because I had gotten so bad shooting dope. I had became this one monster in 20 years that I said I would never be. And here I am, a junkie on the side of the road, living in abandoned houses with nothing. And God didn't want me to die because he didn't let the gun go off. My daughter and my son-in-law comes in and gets the gun and shoots through the wall. Still, I don't want to be here anymore. I have nothing. I'm at the point to where no one wants to be around me, not even me. My daughter was amazing. I thought that maybe letting her see that side of me and see that monster, that she would never want to be what I was, because she could see how ugly I was, and that what I did on a daily basis to be high, and the people that I manipulated and destroyed, maybe she would never want to be like me. I would say about 3 or 4 days later, she comes to me and tells me she's pregnant with my first grandchild. I was a monster. I said, God, I'm not fit to be alive, much less be a grandmother, because I don't want to be here. I prayed that he either let me take myself out of here, or he did something with me. 8 hours later, I ended up in the back of a cop car with all these new charges. And at this moment, I know that this is God, and that God set me down. And this is the turning point, and this is where I don't want to be this person anymore. And this is where I surrendered to God in the back of a cop car. This is where I laid my life down so high that I didn't know who I was. My mind messed with me a lot in jail, because God spoke to me and said, this is it, you're either going to be all in or you're going to be all out. There's not another chance for you. So as I'm sitting here, I'm so high they keep me in a drunk tank, because I ate most of the evidence. That's how I got tampered with physical evidence. I didn't open the door. I'm just still eating the dope. As I'm sitting there, God says, apply to the love lady. And I'm like, I'm going to prison, God. Maybe when I get out of the love lady, I'm fixing to go do 5 years. There's no doubt in my mind. I didn't call my family to start with because of shame. Here I am again in jail, and I know one's coming for me this time. I knew that. That wasn't the case. God came for me, and he never let my dad give up on me, and my mom. At this point, my mom had cut off complete ties with the tough love, but they eventually started to see something change in me. I applied to the love lady because I don't let this die at all. Like, I'm very adamant about apply to the love lady. God told me to apply to the love lady, and I'm going. I had a felony hold in Talladega County, so if I was to bond out, I'm going to Talladega County Jail. I had been before the judge with my motion for rehab and was denied. So at this point, I was kind of crushed and felt defeated. And this is the point where I had still praised God, even though I didn't think I was going to get to go. I was like, Lord, maybe this isn't my season. I'm going to go when I get out. It was about 3 weeks later, after being told that I'm not going, it's not possible, that they can't release me with a hold on another county, that I'm told to pack my things up. In jail, they don't tell you where you're going, they just tell you to pack up. So I asked, do I need my whites? Am I going to Talladega County Jail? And she's like, just get your stuff, you got to go now. So I grab my things and I go to the front. They're processing me out. And I'm like, I have a hold in Talladega County I've got to be ran through NCIC, like I'm going to Talladega County Jail. And he's like, no, you're not. We need you to get in free world clothes because you're going to the Lovelady. Your rehab bond has been approved. So I'm in shock, and I still am thinking, okay, Lord, I don't want to get my hopes up, because I know I have a hold, and I know that the process is that I have to go to Talladega County Jail, and he has to approve me. And that didn't happen. I walked out of the door on a signature bond, a $250,000 bond down to my dad's signature. And they gave me 6 hours to turn myself into the Lovelady. At this point, I knew something was different in me. I knew that I was not the same person. I didn't crave to go back to meet the people that I used to be with. I didn't crave to go back into the lifestyle that I used to be in. And I didn't miss it. I never fit in anywhere in life in 40 years. I never felt like I fit in anywhere. I never have. Even though I ran things and I was a boss, I did that as an exterior just because I didn't fit in. I wasn't meant to fit in anywhere because God wanted me to fit in here. This is where He meant for me to be, and I was never going to be in place anywhere else that I wanted to be. As being at the Lovelady for 3 months, I tell them I have a warrant and I need to turn myself in. She's like, no, not right now. And I said, I have Stacy Vogel for a probation officer. And I used to say she was the Antichrist. You know, it's going to be bad. I have to turn myself in. I've never willingly turned myself in or made any steps to try to fix the mess that I made. I always relied on someone to give me a lawyer, someone to do it for me, someone else to fix it. I got in this mess. If you love me was my thing. Get me out of it. Please don't let me go to prison. If you love me, how can you let your child go to prison? So they did everything in their power to try to keep me from going. Finally, they come and tell me that I have to come call Stacy on the phone. So I go to the office at the Lovelady, and I'm talking to Stacy, and I said, Stacy, I'm at the Lovelady, and she's like, how, and then, you know, what did you get there? And I said, well, I drove. She said, how did you drive? You're supposed to be in Talladega County Jail. I said, I understand that. I'm turning myself in the morning. Because I had got the one thing that I prayed for God to give me, was to set me apart, to see my granddaughter be born, and to hold her and not be in prison white, to let me experience that and not be in prison. So I didn't never think I was getting out a get out of jail free card. I never prayed for God to remove everything that I had done, because I know by the law of even God that you have to suffer the consequences of man and God for the laws that you break. So I went to court. Actually, my Lovelady escort was late to court, so I got there at the end of court. So they were really angry, and they didn't even speak to me. I immediately went to jail, and as I'm sitting there, Judge King comes to see me, and the officers are telling me I'm not going back to the Lovelady, and I'm like, no, I don't receive that. It's not what God told me. I'm leaving here, and I'm leaving here today. I'm not unrolling my mat. I'm not getting comfortable, because this is not where God wants me to be at. So Judge King personally comes to the jail and tells me that he's going to send me back for 6 months, that he don't know how I got to the Lovelady, that a higher power was definitely involved in my case, and that he wasn't going to fool with it. He said, Tallapoosa is sending you to prison, and I don't want to be the one involved in that. I'm going to let them handle it. So on this reverse split, he sent me to Lovelady again, which is not possible. Shouldn't be there. And as we do this 6 months, I go back after I completed the program. I waited 9 days to be arrested, which was torture, because I've never waited on anything. As I'm sitting there waiting, I prayed up a lot, and I sought God like I seek the dope man. Because I said, I sought that dope man to keep from being sick. But it only made me sicker in the other ways. But I sought him with every being in my body to keep from being sick. So when I started seeking God like that, and I started putting that in my mentality, like, you chase that dope man with everything that you had, You laid everything on the line for it. When you start chasing God like that, you're going to get somewhere.
Amen.
So they eventually come and take me to jail. I go before Judge King 2 weeks later, and I have multiple friends in the jail, some with the same county, same reverse split. They had lesser charges than I did in Tallapoosa County and was on a reverse split in Talladega. As we're going to court, I'm the last one to go up, and my attorney comes and says, you have to surrender your probation. I need you to sign this paper. There's no hope. Like, this is the best thing. You don't want to make him mad. Go ahead and do the right thing. You know you're going to prison. I didn't sign that paper. I said, you know what? If you take that from me, you'll take it, because I won't give you anything. So I go, I'm sitting here, and I'm shaken to death. And everyone around me is like, be prepared to go to prison, because you're delusional. I hear drug task force testifying against the girl before me that had lesser charges. And I'm thinking, they're fixing to get me next. The same drug task force is fixing to slaughter me like they did her, and mine's worse. So I'm praying, and I'm praying, and I'm praying, and I never, ever looked up till I got up there to the judge. When I went up to the judge, my shackles were shaking so bad I couldn't hardly breathe. But I had a peace, because I knew that God had went before me. Judge King is once again says, I don't want to sentence you to prison. I'm sending you back to the Love Lady for 6 more months. He says, eventually Tallapoosa is going to send you to prison, and you're going to be gone anyways. He said, so I'm going to send you with a strict order that you don't go anywhere and you don't do anything. You have to have an escort. So I go back to the Love Lady, and I got to see my daughter graduate. I sat in this seat humbled that I wouldn't cared about a year before that, because it didn't matter to me. I watched my daughter walk across the stage as a proud mother that sat there clean, you know. I had got a lot of things in this time, and I didn't think this whole time I had prepared myself to go to prison, because I knew that I had prison charges. I had just enjoyed and humbled and really lived the life that I should have been living all along in this time that I had at the Love Lady. I eventually got indicted by Tallapoosa County, and they came and got me. Here I go back to jail again. The officers didn't even know me at this point, because when I went to jail the first time, I wouldn't stand up. I wouldn't do fingerprints. I made them drag me. I was uncooperative completely at all. When I go back in here, I'm just a totally different person, and the staff is just amazed. Once again, bond money comes up, and they have to bond me out again. And all this time that, you know, they're putting money into my future, because they know there's something in there, and they're hoping one day that it'll come alive. I go back to the Love Lady, and a week later I was sentenced. I've never been sentenced so fast in my life. It's always a process that you go through. So I'm going to a jury trial, but I'm going to go ahead and plead guilty. So I have pled to a 5-year sentence in prison, because that's the least I could get for the points that I had. So I know on the split that what I'm going to have to go do, and I know that I'm going to prison. So my lawyer isn't, I'm the only one in the courtroom. No one else is there. There's a black lady sitting on the bench about where me, my mother, and my client rep were at. Never did I know that this was my probation officer soon to be. The judge is like, where's my lawyer? She's running late. Praise God that she was late. She left the original plea agreement at home. So as this is happening, the judge is talking to us, and he just wants to know my life. He just wants to know how I got to here, where I'm standing at, going to prison. He wants to know what made me, triggered me, so he may can help someone else to get me to this point. So as we're just talking, like me and you are, God intervened, because he put a whole different thing in his heart. When I went before him, when my lawyer finally gets there about 20 minutes later, he tears the plea agreement up, and he gives me probation and knocks it down to a Class D felony. They had split the charges from Alex City and Alex City and Dable. I got some in Dable for stuff I had on me that I wouldn't give up, so I got those charges out of jail. So they knocked those down to a D felony, and I walk out, and I'm going back to the Lovelady. So Judge King calls me back, and he's like, why didn't tell him to send you to prison? And I'm like, God. So once again, we sit here and talk to this judge. I have an order to go to prison. He takes my phone. My kids are crying. I'm being arrested to go to prison. Judge King just takes the time and sits and talks to me about, once again, how I got where I'm at, because he's dealt with me for 20 years. As we're sitting there talking, my probation officer is very adamant that I'm going to prison, that I'm a hopeless cause, and that she didn't care if I had changed my life, that it would do me good when I got out of prison. He changes his mind. God changed his mind. If he changed Pharaoh's, he surely changed Judge King's. I went back to the Lovelady, still under this strict order, because no one's bouncing back and forth, because no one wants to send me to prison. Eventually, I've been there 18 months, and I go before Judge King trying to go home. I had issues at home, major issues. So he says, I'm going to let you go, and I'm taking you out from under the covering of the Lovelady, and I'm going to see how you do in the real world, in society. So as I'm coming home, I know I have a problem, because you can see the problems when we just know. My daughter's using drugs. I had suspected it at the Lovelady, but it's one of those things that you don't really want to know. It had gotten worse. She was pregnant. I had been like, God, I just wanted to come home and be a grandmother, and I just wanted to come home and live life. I just wanted to be normal again. I just wanted to be a grandmother. I wanted to go to doctor's visits. I just wanted to keep my grandchild. That's not what God sent me home for. I bartered with him a lot on this one, because he was like, you're either going to make this decision to stay the way you are, and you're going to turn a blind eye, or you're going to do what's right, and you're going to turn the situation in. So I have my grandchild at my house, and I know this is the last time I'm going to see her for a really long time. Things had got pretty bad. My son-in-law and my daughter had solicited my underage daughter for sex. So it was that bad by the time I got home and could deal with it. I called the sheriff's department, and that's something we don't do in the world that I live in. But I'm not in that world anymore. I'm not part of them anymore, and I don't care what I'm called. I'm in the part to what's right, and what's right is my granddaughter was being killed by methamphetamines by every shot of dope my daughter took. They ended up I kept the baby for about 3 days, and I know with my record I'm not going to get her. I know that this is God's time for me to be able to say goodbye for a long time. It doesn't bother me a lot, because I know in my heart that this is what God sent me home to do. And I know as a mother saved that's lost her children, that sits on the addict side, that sits on the mother's side, that someone had to save my granddaughter and my daughter. She's clean now. The umbilical cord did not come back bad, and that's only God, because she was using drugs up until the point where they tested back 6 months. And that's the one thing that I told God, God, if I have to do this, don't let me be the one to send her to prison, because this is a prison charge, it's 10-year sentence. God, let it shake her up enough to get clean and sober. We don't talk. I never met my other granddaughter. I missed a lot of first things in her life, but God said she's going to take her first breath because you care about her enough that you're going to put an end to this. DHR said she's not a living human being. There's nothing we can do. She can use drugs up to the point that she has the baby, and then if the baby dies, then she can be charged. So I don't know where we got a gap in our system that it's okay to kill a child. But at this point, she's clean, and my son-in-law's clean, and they're doing good, and she has the kids back, and she's doing the things that I couldn't do because I didn't let them be stepping stones. I let them be stumbling blocks. Strength in her that's from me, she's got clean, but we think that the things that we put our children through when we're in addiction, that it's going to make them not want to do it, or it's going to make them not see how bad it is. It doesn't. It makes them comfortable to the environment. So when it's brought around them, they may not do it right off, but eventually you become who you're hanging around with. That's a fact. So, it was just a thing that I had to deal with. Me and God, that, I had to battle with Satan, really battle with me about. It was my fault. But, she made a choice to do it, and I made the choice to stop her. I have dealt a lot of bad things with Jennifer. We have went through some bad stuff. To be sitting in a good seat with God, that's amazing, because I've known Jennifer for a really, really, really long time. And as I stand here, I'm not recovering. I'm recovered. I've never been free in my life. I just got offered, I work hard. God put a job in my lap when I got out. And I was like, Lord, I want to go to Disney World for 7 days. Who wouldn't want to go? I've been locked up. So I leave and I go to Disney World, and I come back, the job's not available anymore. That was just offered to me, I didn't ask for it. And it's at a business called Color Code Cookies, where it's all recovering addicts. So I tried to find a job, and God didn't let me find one, because I built this with my daughter and dealt with that. And then eventually the job came open again, and she called me and said, look, I need you to come to work tomorrow. I ended up getting the job, and I ended up following the man. The business closed down, and I ended up following him to a warehouse. I'm the least one there with the least amount of time. I have the least amount of knowledge, but I work hard for what I got. And God has called me to be the manager of the entire place. So it's the more I see God, the more I see God opening doors that shouldn't be open. I don't have the skills. I don't have the qualification. There's people that's been there 22 years that should have the job over me. But, God said, you've been obedient in the things that I asked you to do that was the hardest. And you still sought after me no matter what. So that says that he continues to bless you, I'm thankful to be standing right here, because I know I shouldn't be. Tallapoosa County is still not sentenced me. They don't know what to do. I've been to court numerous times. This is 3 years now, and they're thinking about dropping them down to misdemeanors. The more time that I have, that I've progressed, become a productive member of society, the least they want to sentence me. So at this point, I'm sitting here like I'm prison bound regardless, but God is not going to let that happen. I've become friends with the drug task force. Like they just are amazed in the difference with dealing with me, So I know that that's the next part of my story that God's got. That I'm just going to walk out of here, and it's going to be fine. I have no fear in my heart whatsoever, because I know that God has brought me through hell and back, and I know he has me now. I have a support system that goes with me wherever I go to give my testimony. They're amazing. I couldn't ask for better people in my life. I really appreciate y'all letting me come. And I'll see you guys again, because I didn't know where to go since I've been out. This is on my way home.